The island nation of Krakoa began with a simple dream, a better life for all of mutantkind. But after so much disaster, upheaval, and betrayal, is that dream dead in the water? Or does it have a chance to evolve? Well, let's hop into the pages of X-Men issue number 35, the big 700th issue spectacular that sees the grand finale of the Krakoan era. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop on in together and find out, shall we? So then, as we join the book, we see that Professor Xavier is being brought to a military prison after turning himself in for all those war crimes he committed while briefly working for Orchis. Here's the problem though, the humans want to see him stand trial, but mutants like Wolverine have already decided that if Chuck is going to face justice, he's going to be facing mutant justice, which usually ends with a bunch of pointy adamantium claws in your soft bits. Here's the problem though, just as Logan gets up close and personal with the Prof, he ends up getting knocked away by Magneto. Eric, or should I say Max, has taken it upon himself to have the final word in this situation with his old friend, and so they end up going to do just that. The newly reborn Magneto asks Professor Xavier how the hell they got here. Did their simple dream for a mutant nation corrupt them, or did they end up corrupting such a beautiful idea? If nothing else, Magneto admits this whole experience has changed him. He realizes now more than ever that he's not a joiner, that he can no longer deny who he truly is deep down in his heart of hearts. And he now sees that the enemies he has been fighting has been the forces of oppression, all sorts of oppression, be they against mutant or human. It's here that Xavier has no choice but to laugh. After all these years, him and his old friend have finally completely switched moral alignments, where it is now he being the criminal trying to justify all the bodies he created in hopes of creating a better world for mutants. Perhaps the big difference though is that Xavier does actually ask Magneto to bring him back to his cell because he does actually plan to live out his sentence, whatever it might be. Now it's after that we return to Krakoa, where we see a very shocking sight. It seems that the Pacific part of Krakoa has returned once again from the white-hot room. And it's not alone either, as coming through the portal is Kafka, that little fairy boy mutant who we saw take over the Quiet Council at the end of Immortal X-Men. Only here's the twist though, he's not a little boy anymore. He's a full-blown young man now who reveals to us that 15 years have actually passed for the mutants left behind in the white-hot room, and in those intervening years they have thrived and evolved so much to the point they were actually able to save themselves from captivity, which is admittedly a pretty damn clever way to write themselves out of that little problem, yeah? In fact, they've changed so much, their piece of the island nation of Krakoa now speaks a completely different language from the one that remained here on Earth. They have so thoroughly diverged, and that kind of becomes an allegory for the now two very different groups of mutants who have been left in the wake of the Krakoan experiment. Perhaps the biggest breakthrough of the last 15 years, though, is that with the help of the Five, Kafka and the others were actually able to complete one of Krakoa's original mission statements, and that is resurrect all the dead mutants who died in Genosha. Though, in an interesting twist of fate, not all of them actually wanted to remain in the white-hot room. Some of them actually did miss their old lives, their friends and families back on Earth. And it seems that no amount of utopia building was ever going to keep them from eventually coming back. Kafka also speaks to Jean about the ultimate fate of hope. It seems that after finishing the Infinite Phoenix circuit, she is now part of everything in the white-hot room. Basically, she ended up becoming every bit of the mutant messiah everyone thought she was going to be, right down to the whole heroic sacrifice part. It's a happy reunion day for everyone, but one that ends up turning bittersweet once Kafka ultimately reveals that the plan was never for the white-hot mutants to stay on Earth indefinitely. They really just swung by to reconnect with their forefathers, drop off the mutants who wanted to stay before eventually returning home to their new utopia. This revelation serves to royally piss off the likes of Exodus, who sees this as an affront to everything that he tried to do for the white-hot mutants, and indeed he did see himself as something of their Moses figure in their great creation myth. And he ultimately proves to be so possessive he locks everyone else out of the Quiet Council chambers to try and stop the islands from splitting up again. Exodus ends up getting stopped in this mad endeavor though by perhaps one of the most unexpected mutants, and that is the returning Apocalypse. Again, the books have basically been building up to a huge knockdown, drag-out fight between these two for a very long time, and Apocalypse is sure to rub salt into Exodus's wounds, saying that he'll always be his acolyte. And And yet, despite all of his personal growth, there's nothing that Exodus is that Apocalypse can't just take away, and then he pops his head like a goddamn cherry tomato, and oh yeah, it's not like they can just bring the mutants back anymore because Storm references later on in the book that the era of resurrection is also over. No, they don't really go into great detail as to why, but I can understand why they want to put that genie back in the bottle. And it's Storm saying it, and we don't actually know how many members of the Five also decided to stay behind in the white-hot room. Before Kafka and the others depart, though, he decides now might be a fun time to actually walk him through all of the accomplishments they've made in the intervening 15 years. It would seem that the new nation is actually even more ecologically advanced than the old one, Kafka saying that feeding the place on psychic energy was never something that was meant to last, and that they've actually found a way to circumvent all of this just by being better, greener people. Why, they even have a whole hall of wooden statues honoring mutant history and mutant heroes, including Apocalypse, though he doesn't so much like his statue as it honors his time as a villain. Kafka says he meant no disrespect, he only wanted to showcase just how far the white-hot mutants have come since the days of war, and that they have evolved as much mentally and culturally as Apocalypse has since the Bronze Age. No longer asking the ancient question of survival of the fittest, they have completely changed the context of the question. Now it is not the strong who survive, it is the better who survives. But there are many ways to be better, and the complete abandonment of violence is one of the ways in which the white-hot mutants have sought to further elevate themselves. Shockingly, Apocalypse does not take this very nicely, considering it one giant slap in the face to his life's work. After all, he sees himself as the man who returned magic to the mutants, the man who saved Araco, the man who saved Krakoa. Or, to put it in his own terrifyingly eloquent words,
"But you are not ready for the quest. You do not have the proper leadership. Once more, I must bear the load, for I am Apocalypse, the revelation, the unending, and if you hate me for what I must reveal, know that I love you as I always have, even as I break you to the work."
So yeah, Apocalypse is all pissed off that the world is seemingly moving on away from the first mutant, and as such he decides to try and burn everything down. What follows is one giant climactic fight scene, wherein multiple of our favorite X-Men all take turns battling it out with Apocalypse. The fun twist here is that a different artist takes just about every fight, meaning you get some radically different looking fights here. I think the one that everyone is going to be talking about is Wolverine and Deadpool actually teaming up to fight Apocalypse, and don't worry, Wade makes a fourth wall breaking joke about how he's only really here to boost sales and do multimedia integration. It's actually Nightcrawler who ends up dealing the most grievous damage, teleporting Apocalypse's very eyes out of his head. Damn, don't mess with Nightcrawler. In the end though, after Ensabanur has worked over basically everyone on the island, it's down to him and the Phoenix, Jean Grey. Jean, using her psychic powers, is able to open up Apocalypse's mind and show him just how far the white-hot mutants have managed to go in only 15 years. And that if he really cares about the well-being of mutant kind, evolution, and all that stuff, then he should probably screw off right now, which ends up being exactly what he does. Kafka and the others ultimately get ready to take their leave, but Kafka is sure to offer Nightcrawler specifically a chance to come with them into what is basically mutant heaven, but Kurt turns him down, saying that he's always an X-Man at heart and that the good work he's doing here is never done so long as people still need him. The final shot of this story actually sees Cyclops and all the other assembled mutants on the beaches of Krakoa taking a look into what their dream has actually become, a dream that they themselves cannot live in, but a dream that they saw to fruition all the same, a glowing Krakoa, a beautiful mutant island paradise safe in another world, free from all hate, violence, and oppression, because while one Krakoan Age ends here on Earth, on another world the Krakoan Age starts anew. But wait, we're not done yet, because this is an extra-packed 700th issue spectacular. We also have a number of small stories to wrap up hanging plot threads and also prime the pump for the upcoming From Ashes event. The first one actually involves Apocalypse, who returns to Araco, realizing that perhaps the mutant society really truly has moved on beyond their need for him, and if that's the case, he too should change with the times and name an heir. Want to know about that? Be sure to pick up the the Apocalypse mini coming soon. We get another small story involving Mystique, who takes the form of Dr. Stasis, shows that she can finally ice the last remaining Mr. Sinister clone in Mother Righteous. Not much more to say about that, just a reminder that Mystique is cold as hell and we don't gotta be worrying about Sinister clones anymore. Well, at least for a while, probably. After that, we get a story involving Xavier, who we see has been locked up in a special anti-psychic prison built by the likes of Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man. The only problem, though, is that many years ago, fearing this sort of outcome, Xavier was sure to psychically implant a loophole into the smartest men in the Marvel Universe's brains, making sure that his prison cell was imperfect, meaning that whenever he wants, he can reach out and actually help mutants in need. By far, though, the biggest story in this collection is actually one written by X-Men legend Chris Claremont. It involves the dysfunctional family of Nightcrawler, Rogue, Destiny, and Mystique. There had been a lot of big sweeping retcons with them over in the Cy Spurrier story, and this is Claremont basically getting everything back into place. What I appreciate about this story a lot is that a lot of these big changes, like having Destiny and Mystique be lovers who get married, having Mystique actually be Kirk's own father, is all just stuff Claremont wanted to do back in the day anyway, but was considered too radical and too progressive even for the pages of X-Men, but now it's just done and now he gets to have the last word on it. To make a long story short, Nightcrawler accepts his parentage, but at the same time he knows that they're going to have a lot of work to do when it comes to trust because, you know, we can't choose our family, but trust is earned, etc., etc. And the last couple pages are literally just set up for From Ashes. We see Cyclops, Beast, and Iceman take over an old Orchis installation in Antarctica, planning to turn it into their brand new base of operations. Want to know what happens there? Be sure to pick up the new Jed MacKay book when that drops. We see that Kate Pryde has actually turned her back on mutant life and is now trying to live as a regular, everyday human with a normal job. Want to see what happens there? Be sure to pick up Exceptional X-Men from Eval Ewing, also coming soon. There's also Wolverine with Saladin Ahmed. Looks like he's living in the woods, hanging out with a bunch of wolves. There's the new X-Factor with Archangel and Mark Russell, a brand new X-Force book with Forge, an NYX book with Kamala Khan written by Kelly and Lanzig. But perhaps the biggest hanging question is what the hell happens to the X-Mansion now? Well, it seems that a woman by the name of Dr. Ellis has taken over ownership of the Xavier Institute, and once Xavier himself caught wind of it, he faked his death to try and get out of prison, which actually worked. Want to know what happens next? Be sure to pick up the Gail Simone Uncanny X-Men. And so there you have it, everyone, the end of the Krakoan Age of X-Men comics, only not really. In fact, I think the thing I like most about this ending is how it actually manages to have the dream of Krakoa not only mean something, but survive in a form that isn't super distracting to the future of mutant adventures. The good guys built their perfect nation, but in a tragic twist of fate, most of them will never actually get to enjoy it, as the world will always need their heroes and will always need the X-Men fighting for them. More now than ever, probably, what with the Genosian mutants all returned to life, there's probably more X-genes out there in the world now than there's been in a very long time. Of the three big finales, I gotta say this one was probably my favorite, mainly because they focus so heavily on the emotional impact that the last several years of stories have had on our heroes, while also throwing in some big epic action scenes so that people in the back don't get bored. I mean, Exodus and Apocalypse were due to break bad again anyway, so I guess it made sense that they just got it out of the way like they did when they did. It is, however, probably going to take a very long time to unpack Krakoa properly as an era in X-Men stories, what it all meant, not just as a whole, but to all the different characters who had their lives and history changed by the events of the last 5 years. We're also probably going to have some more conversations about nuance and criticism versus fan expectation, because I already am hearing some people throw around stuff like, that was the worst, or that was a total waste of time. Again, I think it's easy to forget now because X-Men as a brand is as hot as it's been since the 90s, and with the promise of new movies, the success of X-Men 97, I think a lot of people forget just what a massive creative rut the X-Men were in only like 5 years ago and how Krakoa helped pull them out of it. And it wasn't just the work of one person either. We gotta give a lot of credit to a whole generation of X-writers who helped put the team back on top at Marvel by telling some of the best stories in a very long time. Did it pan out all the way through? Was it always perfect? No, not at all. Few things are, but it was a damn amazing time in comics, and one that I was happy to be here to talk to you all about. Overall, though, I would give X-Men issue number 35 an 8 out of 10. Not perfect, not the best, but pretty damn good as far as ways to end things go. Now, bring on From Ashes and let's see what they can do.
Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.